Hello and welcome to Multifamily Elevated. My name's Suzanne Hobson, and I am super excited to talk to you about vision, people, and execution, and how you can utilize this information to elevate you and your team and your experience in multifamily. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, giving you the latest and greatest news and content across our multifamily sector. So let's jump in. Enjoy this episode of Multifamily Elevated and enjoy the climb.
Hello, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Multifamily Elevated. I'm your host, Suzanne Hobson, and I am really excited to have one of my besties on today, Pamela Pederson with Enthusiastically Consulting / Here to Elevate.
That's right.
How you doing, Pam?
I'm great. How are you today? You look so pretty in pink.
Oh, why, thank you. That's the Mutual Admiration Club. I love it. Yes.
I have on my standard navy.
Well, really? I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen you in standard anything. But if you, it is like a Here to Elevate color. So I'm just going to
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was thinking ahead.
I appreciate that. I do. So I know we're going to get into a lot of topics today, but would you like to introduce yourself to, like I said before, the two people who don't know who you are? Would you like to tell the crowd who you are and what you do?
Okay. I'm Pam with Enthusiastically Consulting. I started this in 2023 and it's just flown by. I also work with Here to Elevate and do a few of the similar things. We'll get to that in a minute. And I just started doing some webinar training with Ellis Consulting Group. Rick Ellis and I joined forces. So I brought storytelling and AI to that wonderful series. And then, I also volunteer and I'm a city advisory board member with Entryway Central Florida, which is my passion. But really what I did was I focused my business on creating storytelling, digital marketing, whatever you need. Storytelling has always been very important to me since Frank Basile introduced that to me from the Gene Glick Company. He was my senior vice president and mentor, and we still see each other every time we go back to Indianapolis. So it's wonderful to have a mentor. I highly advise it. And, that storytelling, having that base and really realizing that everything that I remember, especially multifamily, right? Everything I remember related to a really good story. It wasn't policies. It wasn't something that was on a PowerPoint. It was the stories that people told. And I really clenched onto that, put it with some digital magic, and bam, we just and I'm having a ball. And of course, I do that for Here to Elevate as well. And it's exciting. My gosh, it's blown up, Suzanne. We started and now it's just everywhere. And I'm super proud of you. It's just amazing experience.
Thanks, Pamela. I couldn't have done any of it without you. You've been there as my confidant, my sounding board, and my marketing genius since the very beginning. And again, none of this could have ever happened without you and your genius. And, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about, your past, like, where you started in multifamily and sort of the different hats you've worn. And then, I won't jump ahead to my next question, but I already have another one queued up. But yeah, just give us a little flavor for your experience in multifamily.
Well, it all began at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development back in 1986. Many of you weren't born yet, probably for years and years. But I was trying to do the math, and it's like 39 years I started with multifamily. That's crazy. And then from there, I took a job with the Gene Glick Company, and I was there just a short time, 23 years. I was their director of training and engagement there. And then we kind of spent some time together at Grace Hill. And then I went to Edge to Learn. I love training and passion and training in digital marketing and storytelling. So hello, those two kind of made sense. And then I thought, you know what, now it's time to do something that I want to do with my philosophies and my stories and share this with people because I think people need it. I really focus everything on positivity. And I think that it can be utilized in whatever process you're going through. And that's something that we have talked about a lot. So that's where it all came from. But yeah, my humble beginnings at the HUD office, which is no longer there, by the way. So
Well, I think I finally met someone that has been in this business longer than me, but not by much.
yeah,
I will tell you, we're very close
and we
in
both
our.
started when we were 2.
know, I know we were really bright 2-year-olds for sure. Yeah, so you have been through the gambit, and Jamie Glick, respectable, very respectable, and well-known company in our space, and then on the partner side with Grace Hill, and just I often tell people the best part about that was not only the fact that we got to work with hundreds of clients and got a firsthand taste of how people do things and how differently organizations do things as it relates to training, but we had one of the best cultures
And
and
the best.
best group of people that work together. And I talk about it still to this day. Every time I talk about culture, I talk about the OGs and that amazing group. Do you often think about that? I know you and I talk about it.
The time, all the time. And we still are friends with almost every single person that was there. I mean, it was like a glue that will never give way. It's kind of like the super glue. But the way that they did hiring and making sure that everybody really got along with each other before you even brought on board was paramount to their success.
I agree. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that because it really is up for companies right now. And, we throw around the culture word and the importance of it. But when you have been in this as long as we have been in this, you really do start to appreciate those moments in your story where the culture was the glue. And it really was the first time I had ever been truly exposed over a long period of time to a culture that actually was what they said they were.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. It was that group of people. It was the way that they really infused the culture throughout. And we did that remotely, which was really,
It was crazy
it
to
was
think
crazy.
about it back, because we were doing it before it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. For COVID, definitely before it
Way
was,
before. Yeah.
yeah, way before. Yeah. So, what do you think was probably the most instrumental part to that? Like, what made that culture so much stronger than, say, other cultures that you've seen just now in your business travels?
Yeah, well, gosh, I haven't seen anything like it since. So that's the tough part to recreate it. I think, you know, again, going back to that interview process, now I changed throughout the years because the company was growing. So by the time I was in the interview process, I can't, I think it was like 5 or 6 interviews before, I finally was like, all right, I can do this, because that's how much they had to vet the employees that they hired. It wasn't just the knowledge. It was, are they positive people? Can they adapt to different situations? Can they work with C-suite individuals? Because we worked with them quite often. Can they lead a team even though they're not a leader? Because many times as clients, we were the leader, but we weren't their leader, but we led their all of the things that they needed for their accounts. So it was just a really good balance, I think, you know, and our original owners of Grace Hill, I think everybody's pretty much familiar with, but Joe Bailey and Kara Rice and Jolene Brannigan, they had it set. They knew what they wanted to do. They had goals, and that's what made it work. If somebody went through that interview process and just wasn't the right fit, which we both went through, even if they were really good at what they did, they didn't make the cut. And I think that makes a huge difference. So when I was hired, you knew me probably better than I knew me at that time, right? Because we had had so many segmented interviews. So it was a really nice process. You had an interview with the person you'd be working with the most, and then the group that we were working in, because we were all segmented into different types of sales groups. And then, making sure each of the other directors also thought that we were winners, per se, but it made a big difference. And I don't see that now. I still don't see that now. But I think that's what made it successful.
Yeah, I know I hear a lot right now about, geez, this is my 15th interview and I still can't get through the process. And there is that whole flip side of, really just
For different reasons, I think.
for different reasons, right? And you're absolutely right. These reasons were great. I just remember getting selected and feeling so
Oh, yeah.
special. You get to
If
go
you get
down and
through all
spend the
that.
day with the
Yes.
owner. Really?
No, it was
Yeah.
great.
Wow. Joe Bailey. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yes, I do remember all that excitement. And then I remember, a couple years in, so I was there for 6 years, and I think you were there for
5 altogether, yeah.
okay, yeah. And so I remember learning some of the art behind how they did that. And it was very intentional. Some of the things that seemed very, I don't know, what's the word, spontaneous or go with the flow were actually very thought out processes of how to take the team through the interviewing process.
Exactly.
And I thought that was just really cool. Like, oh, they were really doing this on purpose, and they did it on purpose, all the way through the process. So I also liked, that experience because, you dealt with the owners directly in a lot of cases. You had your person that you reported to, but it was really an opportunity to be able to be heard, and they were heavily involved.
Yeah, they
with
led
all the
meetings. We were all on those meetings. They led them themselves. We had separate meetings, obviously, with our teams, but we always felt like we were one. And then the retreats.
yeah,
Just
oh
have
yeah.
to bring that up.
Yes, indeed. I'll never forget my first one that I went to, and I actually partook in
Partaken.
partaken? Yeah, and walked away with a parrot sign. What was that? The elephant gift thing that we did. Yeah, I still have it. It's down in my bar in the basement. Yeah, it's just probably want a cracker. Anywho, a little tribute to Jolene Brannigan because she actually wants that to this day.
I bet.
She wants to steal that from me right now. But that was the kind of fun. And we got to bring our spouses, which
Yes.
was another
All
really,
expenses paid, got to bring our spouses and our significant others. And they had activities planned for anything that you can think of. So if you like to golf, you can golf. If you can go to the beach, or you can get one of those phenomenal massages, or just hang out together and shop. It was just amazing. We got to know each other better. We went through workshops. The build a bike workshop was my favorite.
yes,
We
yes.
built bikes and we didn't know what we were doing. We knew we were building bikes. We didn't know why. And then it was divulged to us that they were going to a group of kids, and then they had the kids there. And it was pretty emotional, pretty wild. And I've never had any other event like that. It was pretty cool.
I've got goosebumps thinking
I
about
know.
it. Just
It was
watching
just
those
amazing.
smiling faces walk across the sand and get their bikes, and then just seeing some of the other people in our group be emotionally,
Mhm. I
just
was tearing
overcome.
up just now, so I'm trying to hold
It's a
that
big
back. But
deal. It's
those
a
are
big
things, that's a story, right? That's a story that tells more about a company than reading something on their website. So that's what I resonate towards.
Yes. Well, for sure. There's a lot of other things I know you're up to. And why don't we switch gears a little bit and talk about AI? You and I just both were like, we nerd out on this stuff. And we could talk about it for hours and hours. But I think what you're doing is really unique because you are really taking it to every level of an organization. It's not just this room full of IT people that are developing,
Right.
solutions for multifamily. It's something that you've really brought to the end user at all levels. Can you talk about like how you got turned on by AI and what you're doing with it now?
Sure. AI, gosh, what a nerd I am. But yeah, it just happened to fall together when I started my business. I was reading an article about ChatGPT, and I'm like, what is this? Well, that was it. I was hooked. Once I realized what it could do, and I really focus on generative AI. So I'm not the one in the IT section trying to put everything. I'm the one trying to see, as an end user, what can I do and use this for to speed up my day. So, quick example, I've got 22, I believe at this point, social media accounts, and I handle all 22 of them by myself. and a few AI experts that I created. So that is the difference. I didn't have to replace any employees. I didn't have any, couldn't afford any. But ChatGPT is $20 a month. Claude is $20 a month. All the really good elements that you have out there are really affordable, but the free versions are fine. When you're doing what we do, we typically need a paid version, but free versions do everything. It can schedule tasks for you. It can write thank you notes for you. It can write anything that you can think of so that you can focus on being present instead of focusing on, okay, I can't write any more social media posts today. And we get so busy. And I think a lot of people in multifamily, especially, we are so busy day to day with tasks. We don't have time to brainstorm, or we're too tired at the end of the day to have any brainstorming activity available. But I can get on ChatGPT at 5:30 in the evening, which is my worst time ever, and I can create some things I never thought that I would, because it takes that element out of it and really gives you ideas that you can generate. Now, the one thing I will say is I never use anything verbatim. I always tweak anything that comes out of generative AI, because I still have to make it mine. I have to make it personal. And there's times that, I write blogs, you write blogs. Those are helpful for those situations, but we still have to put ourselves in it. We have to put our stories in it for it to be authentic. If you get on LinkedIn or any of the other programs that you can see the ones that aren't quite like they just jerried it up and boom, there it is. And you can see the ones that are writing really good stuff, whether they used any kind of AI or not, because they are that good at telling their story.
That is so true. And I know there's a lot of controversy right now with, how people are utilizing AI, especially on LinkedIn. There's a lot of critiquers of AI, like looking at your content in that way of, are you using it? Are you just using it? Or, does this have any of you in it at all? And so I know a lot of people are a little paranoid. They're like, okay, does that look like AI generated it? I better redo it again. Even if
Yeah.
you didn't even
I
use
think that you
AI.
have to pay attention to the message, right? It has to be the message. If the message is in there, just finesse it a little bit and you're good to go. But if it doesn't sound like you, then it's not you. And the thing is you can make it sound like you easily just by saying, you know what, ChatGPT, I use language that is a little less formal. Or you can also say, ChatGPT, ask me any questions that you may need to complete this task, because that way it can get you. And I think that's something that we forget to do when ChatGPT or any of the others give you the whatever you've tried to generate, an email or whatever the case may be. That's just the starting point. From that point, you can say, okay, I need this to be more professional, or I need this to be more polished. I need this to be more positive. I need this to be a little bit more direct. Or ChatGPT, can you let me know what other items you've seen in these type of emails that I'm missing? There you go. It's just an amazing thing. So you can start with one thing and really with tweaks. And I mean, it never ends. It doesn't care how many times that you ask it. It will keep answering you until you get what you need, which is unbelievable.
It
So there's
really
not many
is.
people
Yeah.
that will put up with you like that. So $20 a month, it earns every single penny.
Well, and I'm going to be able to direct people your way at the end of this, because I think, this is something you could talk to, and you're a resource for our folks out there who are just dabbling in it right now. And you would be a great guide for how they can really use it to create efficiencies in their work and in their life, quite frankly. Yeah. So, as part of what we offer at Here to Elevate, we are offering Boss Up, which is a business operating system that we are now trying to add an AI component to, which is really necessary, I think, especially in strategic thinking, which I think, you know, um, not everybody is using it for that. And you and I have talked a lot about that. The poking of the holes in the business plan, and how can I really tighten this up to solve for the real issues. how do I use technology to really assist and bring efficiency to the strategy that I'm trying to implement, and using it as a thought partner, and not just another way of getting tasks accomplished. And so I'm really excited about that part. And I know, you'll be working with me on that as well. But I think we need to be thinking about how we're utilizing it in everything. I have a sticky that just basically says, how can AI help me today? And it's right there. And every time I'm going about my business or going to work on something, I'm forcing myself to think of, like, how can I use this tool to really help me make the best product I possibly can? And that could just be a letter. It could
Be
be,
it PowerPoint.
oh gosh.
If you have a presentation already put together and you think you've thought of everything, you put it in there and say, hey, act as a professor of something. Like if you're writing a scientific something or other in PowerPoint, then ask it to be a scientific professor. And you'll be amazed at how many holes it can poke.
Totally. Websites, same thing.
Yeah. Oh,
I've got,
websites. I mean, it is amazing for websites. Absolutely. The
yes,
first time
yes.
I ran it on my first website, it was not pretty.
I bring it up for a reason.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, not yours, but yeah, in helping clients, it has been really a great tool to help narrow things down, and identify the 2 to 3 things to go to work on instead of the 50 things on the list. I think it's a really great summary tool. And yeah, we could probably talk all day long about
We could.
AI, for sure, for sure. But I think the other thing that we like to talk about a lot is leadership. And, you know, we see the great leaders, and we see some of the leadership that's occurring in our world that is not so great. And you and I talk about those characteristics, or, the key to being a great leader. And tell me a little bit about your philosophy on leadership, and yeah, just talk about
Yeah, well, it's leadership is something I took for granted when Frank Basile, for instance, was my boss at GB Glick. Now, he was only my boss for the last 4 or 5 years, and I had bosses before that. But when I started reporting to him, it was very interesting because I realized that he was really listening and focusing in on what I was saying. If he disagreed with me, he was very direct, but he wasn't in a situation where it made me feel like he put me down. And I think everybody that has had a boss at some point has probably felt that. Like, you feel like somebody's, even though they're not, in some instances, you feel like they're barking at you. It's a really fine line to figure out how to communicate to each person. I asked Frank one time he was so effective. He goes, it's really easy. You get to know the person. He goes, I can present things to you, Pam, and I know what to use to present them. Whereas if I was presenting to an IT professional, I would use a completely different plan because you are very visual and emotional, unlike my IT professional. So knowing, and that really has stuck with me all these years. If you know your employee, what their likes are, what their needs are, what their wants are, what their vision is, and what their goals are, you're halfway there. Now you just have to develop those leadership habits, sincereness, empathy, directness when needed. But I never feel like raising a voice is ever a situation that is needed, ever. And that's just my philosophy. I'm more of a positive person. I'm not a combative person. I don't like it when I have to fire somebody. We've all pretty much done it, hated it, threw up a couple times, but I got, and, but that's just not how I'm built. Now, I did the things that I needed to do, but I really always tried to be empathetic, know my employees, know my plan, know my vision, and try to work from that. But being empathetic and being direct they're not that hard. I think a lot of times we think that we're going to hurt people's feelings, but I, even to this day, would still rather, Suzanne, you saying, yeah, I just don't like it, than, well, it's great. And then send me an email later and go, well, I just need you to tweak these few things because you didn't want to say that to me. It's easier to do in an email. You get over that really quickly. But to be a good leader, you need to be an effective communicator and whatever you need to pass down. But I just think positivity goes a long way. And I think that builds loyalty, because I tell you what, I will break my neck, and I will do this for any great supervisor. I will break my neck to get something done because I know you will appreciate it. I say I do things for Suzanne all the time, and you always thank me, even for the littlest things. And I think you picked up some of that at the same times that I did, when we weren't getting that feedback. In fact, we were dismissed quite a few times. And, we learned more about how we aren't going to be leaders from those opportunities. And I think people that are watching this probably can really relate to that. You've had leaders, we've all had good ones, we've all had bad ones. Don't imitate the bad ones, even though that's ingrained in us and it's easy for me to snap at somebody, but that's not good leadership. You have to slow down, take a deep breath, go get a massage if you need to before you have to do something hard. But make sure that you are communicating in a way that will get the best work from your employee. I think when we get to these digs, when you get to passive aggressiveness, well, that's actually worse than yelling, I think. Passive aggressiveness, just avoiding an employee, dismissing every idea. You start not having them on meetings. We've been through this. So I think we use that as much as we have the characteristics of good leaders. This is how we learn. So hopefully a lot of you won't run into some of the leadership situations that Suzanne and I have went through. But watch for the keys. Good leaders are hard to find. If you have a good leader, let them know they're a good leader. But that loyalty goes both ways. And you'll find that you'll have leaders that will help you find a position, even if it's not with a company, if they think that your talent is that good. And that's just the way leadership should be.
I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely right. We have learned a lot over the years of what not to do. And I talk about mistakes all the time because that's just how I've learned and how we learn. And to be able to reflect back on some of the things that I put up with, that I would not put up with today. I think that's why we've chosen to do what we're doing.
I think so too.
It's not like we don't have bosses. We have clients, right? And we have people that we
Yeah, you
serve.
never truly, in whatever you're doing, you never truly don't have bosses. They're just called something else.
Yeah, they're just called something else. People we serve. And, I do remember a time when, and I went from one culture to the next so fast, my head spinned.
Yeah, I think we both
And
kind of did that. Yeah.
we did. And I was just really caught off guard where I couldn't respond well. I remember feeling almost like, well, physically ill, mentally ill. I felt just not right. And just the passive aggressiveness, the indirectness, which leads to you wondering and like what's really going on, and no trust, like the trust was gone. And trying to find my way in that world was so hard because I couldn't identify any beacon of leadership that I could go towards to set myself right. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. I know we all relied on each other through a lot of it because we were like, and everybody else. It was very difficult. That was a very, very difficult time. And there's been a few other times I think that you and I could name where you felt less important, or like your opinion just didn't matter, or the work that you did wasn't appreciated. And it does in turn, as you become a leader of others or a teacher, an educator, which is what I feel like a lot of the time, you do want to be the person that you have seen not be the person. And so I do think, my lucky stars for all the bad experiences as well, because it certainly has, taught us all what not to be.
We
And
got to shorten that time span up, but yeah, um, I just think, anytime, I think if there's one point that I want to make about leadership is I never want to see a situation that if an employee doesn't want to go to work because they don't know if that's their last day. Because, you get all these memos going, for one, half the team's gone here, half the team. If you're worrying about where you are in that company, you are not going to do your best work. And that's what I want other leaders to understand. When there's going to be changes in companies, but there's correct ways to do it. And there's ways to do it to really slump your whole team into unprotective, productive situations, right? Because when you aren't important and you don't know if you're going to be there the next day, you might get things done, but you're not going to do them to the expectations of what you typically do. And that's the disconnect, I think, that we're finding today, especially in today's environment. And I think you and I have talked about this before. We see this more and more and more every single day. So it's just something I think as leaders, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a staff, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have a fancy title, because we are all leaders. As leaders, we are the ones that should step up and promote positivity and promote the right way to do things. Trust me, when you get to a situation where you can't do it anymore, you're going to make changes on your own. You're going to make changes on your own. It may take you longer. It took me a little longer than what I thought I was going to wait, but you will make those changes and you'll know when it's time to make a change if that situation comes to. But I think on those interviews, I think something that we looked at when we were looking at other positions is, all right, what's the cult? I mean, that's the first thing okay, what's the culture? Is it really what we think it is? Is it really what's displayed on their website? I think these are things that if you are in an interview process, these are things you have to research. Research them, double the time they're going to research you, because you're going to be spending a lot of time there. And it's very important to get the right fit.
Totally. And you had said something a while back about, when you were talking about communication and, the signs of a good leader and of, being direct and yet taking care. And I'm just not reading, I'm listening to a book this time, an Audible book by Jefferson Fisher, and it is called The Next Conversation.
I know I'm a big fan. Oh, everybody needs to get that book or follow him on Instagram or LinkedIn, or he is incredible.
Yes. Like in less than 2 minutes on Instagram, he can explain a concept that you can immediately use in your life. And he talks about not going into communication as a win-lose or an argument that you need to win, but how can I make this a win-win? And I thought that was just so, like, I've heard it before.
Yeah,
but
it's the way that he says it. And he also uses examples of things to say, things not to say, and how to reword those things. He started it in his car. He started this in his car with self-made videos and has just skyrocketed. I think today, isn't it funny? We both know the same person. This morning he had on Instagram that he was in London for a book signing, and he was doing his podcast from a car, a cab. He goes, "This is not my car; it's a cab." And he was really excited. Wonderful information, but really good. He has some really good passive aggressive items that you may not think are passive aggressive, but they are. And he gives you really good insight on how to say things better. And really, that's what he built his whole premise of. It's just amazing. Really good guy. I love to hear him.
And I love his experience. He's a trial attorney. He's a fifth generation trial attorney. And if anybody knows how to argue, it's him. And yet, he does his best work by putting the other side at ease and making it a win-win. And
he's not combatant. You can say things in a positive manner without being a combatant and get probably better results than you would have in a traditional setting. So yeah, it's really good. He really got me thinking, because there's a lot of conversations. I think we all had conversations that we have had in the past where we didn't say the things that we thought probably were best at the time, because sometimes things just come out. And he's really good about, you don't need to answer. You can pause. You don't have to answer everything. And sometimes it doesn't deserve an answer, but taking that pause is so important. So that taught me a little bit, because as you can tell from I speed up my speaking all the time. He has taught me to, okay, let's think about this before. We don't even have to respond, but let's think about it and make them think about what we're thinking about while we're thinking about it. It really works.
It really does. And I just wrote part of my blog regarding one of the lessons in this, and it was about the pause and what you were just talking about, that deep breath, then one more, and then slowly letting it out. And the first time you do it, it's audible. You can actually hear it. And then, to be able to do it through your nose so that it's only you that knows what you're doing, but it totally relinquishes the flight or fight response, which that in and of itself, I think, is what makes an argument go downhill really fast,
It
because
does.
you are in defense mode or you're in retreat mode. I love the control things that he talks about too, though, like how to really still be confident and stand your ground with something, with someone without offending them or losing your skittles, basically. So anyway, we could talk about him all day.
Yeah, he's
And I
really
think,
great. I hope everybody looks him up because he is just easy
he's
to listen
easy.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got stuff for us for like tomorrow.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter
Tomorrow.
what, you study or what you're doing, regardless of your title, this will fit for anyone in business, anyone, or in life, actually.
So good. So good.
Yeah, really
Well,
good.
here we are, Pam. We're like at the end of our time to chat, and we need more time. Like there's got to be a chapter 2 to all of this. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me, and sharing your wisdom with the masses. I would love people to know where to find you if they'd like to talk with you more about what you do, or just pick your brain on AI or whatever. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm always on LinkedIn. I think, LinkedIn is kind of my go-to. I'm on LinkedIn, enthusiasticallyconsulting.com, just revised and put up. Oh, thank you. Yeah, as is Here to Elevate, which elevated what I needed my website to look like. So, I mean, it's just easy to get a hold of me. So give me a call. But Here to Elevate, oh my gosh, if you are a company that you need somebody fractionally, you've got so many players on the team now, Suzanne, that anything that any company needs, we can provide with all of the employees that you have access to. And I've worked with some great clients of yours and learned so much from them. And it's just been a joy. So, the boss up, and if you need fractional, this is where you go. And this is a good leader, everybody. This is what a leader looks like. So if you have the same philosophies, maybe you'll look us both up.
There we go.
There we
go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Pam, and we'll see you around the bend.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to Multifamily Elevated, where we hope that you are inspired and ready to go, elevated to take on your next challenge in multifamily. So if you liked this episode, please subscribe, like, comment, and of course, share with your network. And don't forget that this was brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, that is also sharing the latest and greatest in trends, ideas, and content across our multifamily space. Until next time, keep elevating, and we'll talk soon.